What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Skull Network. My name is Nick, and welcome to NFL Picks Week 3 edition. Last week in Week 2, we went 10-6, so slightly better than Week 1, bringing the official total season record to 19-13. Not super great, but I do think as the season progresses, things will definitely get a lot better as we know who really is good and who really isn't. But as per usual, there's a lot of great matchups this week, and let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into those. Kicking things off, we have Thursday Night Football with the Houston Texans versus the Carolina Panthers. Panthers, as we know, shut down what looked to be a great offense in the Saints last week, although we don't know if they're actually that great. Maybe Jameis Winston was just a fraud in Week 1, who knows? And at the time that I'm recording this, we're not sure on the status of Tyrod Taylor, and obviously we know Deshaun Watson won't play, so if it is David Mills there, it's not looking great for Houston. So going off that assumption, because I honestly just don't know if Tyrod Taylor's playing, and the fact that Carolina's defense has been very good this season, and Sam Darnold looks to be having a rebirth in his career, I'm going to be taking Carolina on this one. Moving on to the Sunday slate of games, we are kicking it off with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers played a relatively close one against Dallas last week, but weren't able to pull it off against one of the poor defenses in the league. And Kansas City, as we know, lost in that thriller to Baltimore. And I think with this one, the Chargers offense has been struggling a little bit too much. Even though Kansas City's defense isn't the strongest out there, I think, again, I say this every week, Patrick Mahomes in that offense is incredibly strong and can strike whenever they want. And the Chargers defense, while pretty good, and a lot of their pieces are starting to play very well, I just think, again, Kansas City, a little too strong. I'm going to take Kansas City on this one. Next, we have the Bears and the Browns. As we know, the Browns rebounded last week, and the Bears were able to come out with a win against Cincinnati. Now, again, this is a situation, I don't know the current status of Andy Dalton, so if Justin Fields plays, it's a real maybe, because Justin Fields looked great in the preseason, but during the regular season, both times that he's come in, things have not looked too great. So this really could be an either-or sort of pick here. But in reality, I think regardless of who starts for Chicago, the Browns' offense and defense are both just way too strong for Chicago to really keep up. And I do genuinely think that Cleveland will take this one, although we also don't know the status of Baker Mayfield. But tentatively, I will take the Browns. Moving on, we have the Colts and the Titans, and again, Carson Wentz sprained both his ankles, and we don't know the status of him, but it does look like that Titans offense had a resurgence. Julio Jones put up a great game. Should have had a touchdown. It was taken from him, but regardless, put up great numbers. Derrick Henry, as we know, went absolutely berserk. Titans defense still has a lot of question marks, and for right now, again, don't know the status of Carson Wentz. I think even if Carson Wentz does play, I think this will be a pretty close game if that is the case, because he and that offense have been doing very well. But I think that Derrick Henry is back, so to say, and I do think that he will start his normal ways that we know him to be, and looks like Ryan Tannehill and those receivers are starting to click, which could be pretty scary for the rest of the season. I'm going to be going with Tennessee. Moving on, we have the Washington football team versus the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, as we know, went in and against a very good Miami defense, or what we thought was a very good Miami defense, put up 35 points and completely blanked them. So it does look like they are still as good as we think. Washington, Taylor Heinicke came in last week and played very well, albeit against a bad Giants team, but he used what he had at his disposal, mostly Terry McLaurin, but really made things work against a poor Giants team. But with that being said, I was actually very impressed last week with how Buffalo's run game came about, because as we know, we've never really known them as a running team since Josh Allen has been in Buffalo, and I do think that if they can keep that part of the offense going, then there's going to be almost nobody that can stop them, but that's obviously a big if. But I do think that Buffalo is the better team here. I do think there's a good possibility of an upset, I guess, if Taylor Heinicke plays very well, but you obviously don't know. You've only seen him in 3 career starts. So with that being said, I'm going to be going with Buffalo here. Next, we have the Cardinals and the Jaguars, and this one I don't really need to talk about much. The Cardinals are absolutely on fire. Kyler Murray, Rondale Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, that Cardinals defense playing relatively well as well, even against the Vikings putting up 33 last week. We all know how that went. And the Jaguars, they're on a 16-game losing streak currently. Trevor Lawrence doesn't seem to really have a firm grasp on that team yet. Obviously, you expect him to get better as things go. He's really getting used to losing at this point. I don't think that losing ends, though. Jacksonville still just isn't that strong of a team in many facets of the game. James Robinson has been underperforming quite a bit so far this season, which doesn't bode well for them, and I think it's going to be pretty easy for this one. I'll be going with Arizona so they can start 3-0. Moving on, we have the New Orleans Saints and the New England Patriots. As I said before, the Saints, possibly a fraud team, not 100% sure. Mac Jones playing very well, playing mistake-free football, this is one of those ones where I think it could be relatively close. I don't think Jameis Winston has a game that bad again, and I genuinely do like where Mac Jones is going. I'm going to go with the coin flip like I did last week. It did well for me last week, so the Saints are going to be heads and the Patriots are going to be tails. Hey Google, flip a coin. I got tails, so I will be going with the New England Patriots. Moving on, we have the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions. Detroit looked pretty good on offense against Green Bay on Monday Night Football, but as we know, the Ravens were able to stick with and eventually beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Lamar Jackson coming in very clutch. That offense looks a lot better than I think a lot of people expected, with the still relatively weak receiving core. I mean, Jared Goff is very much utilizing his weapons very well, but that Detroit defense still just is extremely iffy, and Lamar Jackson will probably have a fun time with this one. I think Detroit can have a little bit of a fight here for a little bit, but I think ultimately the Ravens will pull away and take this one. Up next, we have the Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is another one I don't really need to talk about a lot. Joe Burrow, after a very solid week 1, week 2, he really struggled, throwing 3 interceptions on 3 straight drives. And the Steelers defense, we don't know the status of TJ Watt with that groin injury. Obviously, that could play a huge part, but I do think the rest of the Steelers defense is strong enough to where they will make Joe Burrow struggle. And honestly, the Steelers offense isn't extremely strong either, but I do think that there's enough there with that Steelers defense that they won't need to put up a lot of points, and I do think that the Steelers will come through in this AFC North battle, but I do expect it to be close. Up next, we have 2 of the poor looking teams in the league with the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Giants. With this one, there isn't really a lot of good going for both teams. I honestly don't really care too much about this game, but obviously I need to make a pick. I really don't feel like evaluating it, so I'm just going to go on a limb and say that I like the Giants a little bit more here, not for much of a reason, but I'll be taking Daniel Jones and the Giants. Moving on to the afternoon games, we have the Raiders and the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins, as we know, struggled mightily against the Bills last week, and the Raiders pulled off a pretty darn good upset against the Steelers and are now 2-0 against 2 very strong AFC North teams, which is very impressive. Even with a completely dismantled offensive line, Derek Carr really seems to be thriving in that offense, utilizing guys like Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, Henry Ruggs, and the like. And the Raiders defense playing all right, but with Miami, you don't know if Tua is going to be playing. A lot of injuries last week to quarterbacks, and I think with that being said, I think even if Tua does play, I don't know why, I just really am liking the Raiders right now. Maybe this could be a fluke, but until we see it, I'm going to be taking the Raiders. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks, obviously my game of the week, and as we know, the Vikings almost pulled it off against the Cardinals last week. I don't want to talk about it, and as we know, the Seahawks looked like they were going to be taking that game from Tennessee, but of course, Derrick Henry happened, which shows that the Seattle defense is very prone to being beaten by a really good run game, and what do the Vikings have? Just that. What do the Vikings have? A pretty solid offense all around, but let's remember, Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett look absolutely dangerous this year, and the secondary for the Vikings has been relatively poor at best. So I think this will be another shootout with an NFC West opponent for the Vikings. But again, I'm a homer. I say this every week. Even if a lot of people think they're going to lose, I'm always going to pick them to win. I'm taking Minnesota with real confidence this time. Up next, we have the Jets and the Broncos. The Jets have Zach Wilson. The Broncos have a very good defense. That is a recipe for disaster. I'm going to be taking Denver. Incredibly easy here. I'm sorry, Zach Wilson. Up next, we have absolutely the game of the week, really, with the Buccaneers and the Rams. The Rams and Matt Stafford. Cooper Kupp looking like an absolute animal. The Rams still with one of the top defenses in the league, but Tom Brady currently has 9 touchdown passes through 2 games, and he's 44 years old, utilizing all of his weapons as great as we would expect. Tampa's defense, top 5. This is one of those games that probably will go down as one of the top 5 games of the year, and it's almost too close to call. There's a part of me that really likes Matt Stafford and thinks he could be an MVP, but there's that other part of me that sees how Tom Brady is still dominating and might be in his prime at 44 years old that I honestly don't know. I'm gonna go with my gut. When I first looked at this game, when I looked down at my phone and saw Buccaneers versus Rams, I thought the Buccaneers, and I'm gonna stick with that. I'll be taking Tampa Bay, but this is going to be an incredible game. Up next, we have the 49ers and the Packers. As we know, the Packers rebounded a lot in week 2. Aaron Jones with 4 touchdowns, and the 49ers were able to take care of business against Philadelphia, shutting down that relatively potent-looking Eagles defense from week 1. And really, this could be another great game as well. And it's really tough because I really like the 49ers defense, but we know just as well as anyone that that Packers offense can strike lightning at any single point. But Personally, from what I saw from Monday Night Football, the Packers defense definitely had a lot of weaker moments. I honestly don't know if I trust the 49ers defense to even exploit that, because they're down a lot of players, especially in the backfield, and it doesn't really seem like Kyle Shanahan knows who he wants to play from week to week at running back. And Brandon Ayuk has been underperforming at best. George Kittle hasn't really done much in terms of what people thought he was going to do. I don't really know. I really hate going with the Packers in literally any week because obviously they're a division rival, but I don't know. I just don't have a good feeling about San Francisco in this one. I do think that Aaron Rodgers is really getting back into his old form, and I think that while this can be close, I think Green Bay's going to pull it off. And ending off the week with Monday Night Football, we have an NFC East battle with the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. As we know, these games are always great, always very well played. Dak Prescott looked a little worse against the Chargers last week, but as we know, Dak is probably a top 6-7 quarterback arguably in the league. And for Jalen Hurts, took a little step back in week 2 against a pretty darn good 49ers defense. And the Cowboys defense really looked like they started to click, which sounds strange, I know, but they started forcing turnovers and things that they really haven't done in a while. And if they really start clicking on both sides of the ball, they can be a very deadly team. As I've said multiple times in this video, this game's going to be extremely close. It's an NFC East battle. What do you expect? I think in the end, I genuinely think the Dallas will come out on top in this one. And that's going to wrap up the picks for this week, everybody. If you agreed, then make sure you let me know down in the comments below. If you disagreed, do the exact same. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit the button down below to subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like as well. If you guys want to share this video with anyone, you can do that with anyone on any platform. And if it's a cracular on the corner, that's your guys' best option. You guys already know. My name is Nick. I'll see you guys all in the recap between the Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks. Adios.